Sitting here now.
Where's the light?
Hey! Hey!
No worship. No worship.
Not worship.
Not
Not worship.
Not worship.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Everyone take a seat. You try to get me. Yes, he's just today and bring the schedule. What I need to do is
It's right.
Oh, it's easy talk. What's easy talk? You go better. There's just names right down in the label box.
Jesus, you endured my pain. Savior, you bore all my shame, all because of your love. Maker of the universe, broken for the sins of the earth, all because of your love. All because of your love. Because of your cross, my sin is paid. Because of your blood, my sins are washed away. Now all of my life, I freely give. Because of your love, because of your love, I I will set the captives free, all because of your love. Lord, you gave your life for me, so I will give my life for you, all because of your love.
Not under his feet.
All because of
You don't have under his feet.
because of your blood, my sins are washed away. Now all of my life, I freely give. Because of your love, because of your love, I You did it for me. You did it for love. It's your victory. Jesus, you are enough. You did it for me. You did it for love. It's your victory. Jesus, you are enough. You did it for me. You did it for love. It's your victory. Jesus, you are enough. You did it for me. You did it for love. It's your victory. Jesus, you are enough. Because of your cross, my debt is paid. Because of your blood, my sins are washed away. And all of my life, I freely give. Because of your love, because of your love, because of your cross, my debt is paid. Because of your blood, my sins are washed away. Now all of my life, I freely give. Because of your love, because of your love, I Oh, for powerless, all the lost and lonely, need to confess. Know that you are holy. Know that you are holy. And I will sing out hallelujah. And we will cry out hallelujah. The hearts who are content, all that feel unworthy, all that with nothing left, know that you are holy, know that you are holy, and all will sing out hallelujah. Cry out hallelujah, and we will sing out hallelujah, and we will cry out hallelujah. Go on and scream it from the mountains. Go on and tell it to the masses. He is God. Shout it. Go on and scream it from the mountains. Go on and tell it to the masses. He is shout it. Go on and scream it from the mountains. Go on and tell it to the masses. He is God. Sing out hallelujah, and we will cry out hallelujah, and we will sing out hallelujah. Shout it. Go on and scream it from the mountains. Go on and tell it to the masses that He is God. The fullness of your grace is here. The richness of your beauty's all I see. The brightness of your glory has arrived, and your presence I'm completely satisfied. For you, I sing, I dance,
rejoice in this divine romance. Lift my heart and my hands, show my love, show my love. It's really love, your innocent love. That's what I give to God. In your presence, God, I'm completely satisfied. For you, I sing and dance. Rejoice in this divine romance. With my heart and my hands, show my love, show my love. For you, I sing and dance. Rejoice in this divine romance. With my heart and my hands, to show my love, to show my love. Dear God, I just pray tonight as we go into the message that all our hearts would be open, and that you would just speak to us, and that you would help us be open to whatever you have to say, Lord.
Oh, my son. Absolutely. Hello? Hello? No? No. Okay. No? On the second channel. Okay. Hello? There. Hello? Second channel. Second channel. First. The other one. Got me? There. Come on now. All right. Oh, my son, Absalom. My son. My son, Absalom. If only I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son. The cries of the king rang out in the forest. And all the guards, all the soldiers looked on and wondered, what is wrong with this guy? Because What they're looking at is the king mourning the death of his own son, who, if things had gone the other way, yeah, he's saying, I wish if only I had died instead of you. Well, that almost happened. But they bite their tongues because you don't say things like this to the king. You don't say, you idiot. You could have had your wish. It almost went that way. You see, what had happened is David's son had rebelled against him, caused the whole country to go into an uproar and go to war against itself, and it resulted in him getting himself killed. See, Absalom was a guy who obviously, his dad always had a soft spot for him. And so no matter what Absalom did, David was always kind of willing to just overlook and forgive so fast. When Absalom plotted to kill his brother and tricked him into showing up at his house for a feast, he got him drunk and he killed him. Now, don't get me wrong, he had some pretty darn good reasons to kill him. If you're going to kill somebody, like, as reasons go, this was toward the top of the list. See, because Amnon had raped their sister, and then, according to the laws of the land, they were far enough separated, it was kind of like his half-sister twice removed. And so he could have married her and saved her. But he chose not to. He was like, nope, I'm done. And so Absalom was like, I'm not letting that go. So he let it stew for a while. And then when everyone thought there was nothing going to happen, he had him out for dinner and he had him killed. And so he fled to a city of refuge and he stayed there for 2 years and hid. And David lamented that he could never see his son. But he knew that if his son came back, he would be killed. Unless the king pardoned him. And so the king's commander came. Joab comes to David and he says, David, you gotta let your son back. You gotta let your son back. And he says, okay, I'll let my son come back. But don't let him see me. I don't want to see him. I can't be in his presence. But he brings him back into Jerusalem and he lets him take up residence. Happens that his residence is right next to Joab's. And so Absalom, after a while, he's like, hey, you know what, man? Like, this isn't cool. I'm on house arrest. That's not cool. Remember, he killed his brother. Like, it's not like he never did anything. It's not like he's like, oh, man, you caught me with like a dime bag of weed. Well, I gotta go to prison forever. Like, no, he killed somebody. Like, you gotta sort of suffer some consequence for that. But he complains and whines about it, and he finally talks to Joab. See, Joab won't go near him, and so he calls for him twice, he won't come, so he's like, go set his house on fire. That'll get his attention. So they set the yard on fire, and Joab comes over, he's like, what's up with burning my grass? How cool is that? Thanks. And so Absalom's like, oh, I just wanted to see if you could go talk to my dad and see if we can, like, you know, make things cool again. And Joab's like, I'm all over that. Thanks, buddy. But he does it. So he goes to David and he's like, hey, you should really just forgive your son. And so David's like, all right, bring him to me. And he brings him and he's like, my son, I just love you. And he kisses him, he gives him his blessing, and he sends him on his way. So then Absalom thinks he's hot stuff. So this guy who had fled and left and everything else, now he's rolling around like he's the cool dude in town. He gets himself a chariot pulled by horses because walking is so beneath him. And so he's rolling deep in a chariot pulled by horses. And he even gets 50 guys to come around him. Probably because, you know, some of that he needs a little bit of protection because he still killed a guy and never got punishment for it. But also, it's a show of strength. Like, not only am I cool with my dad again, like, I'm the top dude in town, man. What? Come at me, bro. You got to get through 50 warriors first. And my horses. They're going to stomp you. And so he rolls around. But here's the thing. He doesn't just go like, oh yeah, me and Pops were cool now. He starts thinking in his head, you know what? If I were in charge instead of Pops, this would be way cooler. Like rolling deep with 50 guys and a chariot with horses instead of being in my city of exile, instead of being under house arrest. That's not a good enough upgrade for me. I want the palace. I want everything. And so he starts standing outside the gate. And when people come into the city, he's standing there and he looks all impressive. You know, he's got all his people and his chariot. He's, you know, probably like backed up against the chariot, like, son, you know, just like chilling on the ride, you know, like, and he's just hanging out and people come in and he's like, sup, what you doing in town? They're like, oh, I came, you know, to see a judge, to see the king and get some judgment on a matter. And he says, oh, well, tell it to me. I'm the king's son. Maybe I can get, and they tell him, and he goes, yeah, you're right. You should get your way in this. Unfortunately, the king, he didn't see anybody, and there's no judges at home. If only I were in charge, man, I'd get you what you need. And they would say, oh, well, thanks anyway. And he'd say, oh, yes, of course, here, let me bless you. And people would reach out to kiss his hand, you know, like they do with the king. And, you know, they'd come like this and go to kiss his hand and kneel before the prince. And he would say, no, come here, brother, and he'd give him a hug. And with all of this, he won the hearts of the people away from his dad. And so then, fast forward a little bit, and David's hearing rumors of all of these things, but now the rumors have gotten crazy, and David hears a rumor that goes something, well, not something like, exactly like this. A messenger came and told David, the hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom. And David said to all his officials who were with him in Jerusalem, come, we must flee, or none of us will escape from Absalom. He's going to kill us all. And I'm getting kind of old. We must leave immediately, or he will quickly overtake us and bring ruin upon us and put the city to the sword. So they run. They flee and hide. And it comes to where Absalom sends out people and he crowns himself king, trying to go, and he's just a punk. But then he gets so full of himself. Like, David's a famous warrior, like world famous warrior. Like, if this were modern day, David and all his homies would be like the UFC champions. Like, these guys are hardcore elite warriors, and all the dudes that roll with them are all like that too. There's got like 30 guys plus like the head of his personal bodyguard, a guy named Benaiah. He's famous because he chased a lion into a pit on a snowy day and killed it. Like a full-grown, like Mufasa. Like, and he killed it when it was snowing. You guys ever go and like do something when it's snowing? Like fighting on the ground with a huge beast is not on the top of my list of activities to do in the snow. Or ever. So this guy was famous for doing stuff like that, and that's the head of his bodyguard. And that guy was like, David's an awesome warrior. I'm gonna go with him. Like, I mean, this guy, you don't come after this guy. But they come after him, and there's all this fighting and battles. And, well, Absalom, this is funny, because the guy was so full of himself. He had, like, a head of hair that, like, everybody was jealous of. Like, he had some serious hair. Like, all the dudes were like, man, that's like Samson's hair. That is epic. And all the girls are like, oh my gosh, I wish my hair looked as good as Absalom's. And so he, of course, like, this guy's full of himself. So he fully thinks, like, I am the man, and I got the hair to prove it. So he's riding around on his donkey while all these armies are going about trying to find each other and kill each other. Right? They're out in the woods, and all these armies are out. His army and David's army are out trying to, like, find each other and fight and, you know, all of this and protect the kings and blah, blah, blah. And Absalom, being the pompous moron that he is riding around on his donkey by himself. Or there was a donkey riding a small thing that looks like a horse all by himself out in the woods. And he rides under a tree with low branches, and his awesomely beautiful hair gets caught in the tree. And the donkey goes, you're kind of a... and keeps walking. And leaves him hanging by his beautiful hair out of the tree branches. And so now, this guy Joab, who had basically helped Absalom get to where he is right now, he's now kind of back with Dad. He's sort of kind of like playing whichever side looks like it's going to win. And so at this point, he's starting to think, I think David's going to win. So he's going around with David's men. And one of the guys on the fringe of their group runs across Absalom. They're like, dude, we found Absalom hanging from a tree by his hair. You got to see this. And Joab's like, is he dead? And they're like, yeah, right. Yeah, I killed the king's son. Sure, I'm signing up for that job. You already saw, like, dude killed a guy. He didn't even, like, punish him for it. There's no way I'm going near them. And so Joab's like, you're an idiot. I'm killing him. And so he goes over, kind of laughs at him, puts 3 javelins through him. Like, wants to make sure. Then all of Joab's bodyguards come around and stab him from, like, every direction just to make sure. And when now he's a porcupine with beautiful hair hanging from a tree, like some sort of psychotic piñata. They go back, and then Joab's like, on second thought, David doesn't take it well when you kill people he loves. Because, see, the last time somebody came at him like this and tried to kill him, he spent like 10 years running away from King Saul, knowing that he was anointed to be king. He spent like 10 years running from Saul. And when somebody finally came and reported, this guy didn't even really kill Saul. They were at war, and the bad guys killed Saul on the battlefield. Like, he's all shot with arrows and spears and stuff, and he's like dying. And his armor bearer is standing there, and Saul's like, please stab me with my sword. Don't let them torture me while I'm dying. And he's like, I can't do that. And so he wouldn't even like fully do it. He kind of helped him like fall on his own sword. And then he goes back and he's like, David, King Saul is dead. And he's like, did you do it? And the guy's like, sorta. And he has his head cut off, like right there in front of him. He's like, you don't touch the Lord's anointed. Like, he was like hardcore about this. Joab's thinking back to that. I'm like, dude, I was there. That was not cool. I'm not going to be that guy. And so now we come back to David. He hears about this. The kid who ran him out of his own palace, he did some other stuff that was just not cool. He went into like, David had like a whole harem of wives. He had like a whole building, like an apartment complex full of his wives. And his son went in there and lined them all up and did things that people shouldn't do, especially to their dad's wives. So, I mean, like, Absalom really, like, earned himself some death. So why bring up this other than that, like, that is a freaking weird story, right? I mean, like, David's family was messed up, right? I mean, his son, who was crazy, killed the other son because he raped his sister, you know, and then, you know, tried to, like, take over the whole country, then got himself killed because his pretty hair got stuck in a tree. Like, that's a weird family story. Like, I thought, you know, like, Cousin Stevie was weird because he would, like, you know, blow snot bubbles and eat it. Like, this is, like, crazy. Like, dude, you know, seriously. Like, if your uncle was Ozzy Osbourne, that would be still, like, mellow compared to David's head. You know, like, my uncle bites the heads off of doves. You know, this guy. You know. So, we're starting this new series called Bad Fruit. Bad fruit. Who's heard of the fruit of the Spirit? Now, right before that, if you guys read that whole chapter right before that, there's a whole paragraph about the sins of the flesh. See, the fruit of the Spirit is when you're filled with the Spirit and you grow up and you have fruit growing out. And when you're filled with the Spirit, when you're living a life in the Spirit, you have fruit coming out. And it looks like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. Something else I missed. Faithfulness. Thanks. But if you don't have the Holy Spirit in you, if He's not growing inside of you and making amazing fruit come out, you have bad, nasty fruit that comes out. And it looks something like this. I believe we have it up. The first one. Again. There we go. The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry and witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. Hold here, please. So, this series is about this stuff, and what all of this is, identifying some of these dangers in our lives and how they grow. Because, like, you would never, walk out the door and be like, you know what, I'm going to hit everything on that list today. But if you start off like Absalom, one day you turn around and you're like, what the heck am I doing hanging from a tree by my own hair? You know what I mean? And so we'll get more into all of these. Let's go 2 down to where the ones we're talking about today are highlighted. There you go. So, these ones, fighting, causing division, being a punk. The acts of the flesh, like hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy. See, all of these kind of fit into the same category, and I'm going to rearrange them a little bit. I think I've got one where it's just got those lined up. There we go. Hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissension, faction, and envy. Now, just real quick to go over those, everyone understands hatred, yes? Yeah. Discord. It's like, not everybody working together. Like, think of like, singing together off key. Like when we sing happy birthday to people. Like you did to me last week. Yeah, I have that on video. You're welcome. Discord, like nothing working together. Everybody talking smack, talking while I'm talking, whatnot. Sorry. Jealousy, that's pretty obvious. Fits of rage. Duh. Selfish ambition, you get that. Dissensions. That's like going, I rebel against the guy in charge. Factions and envy. Factions are little groups that split up and fight. So, we're talking about these things. Now, I had an opportunity to get into all this myself one time. See, I was a worship leader in a youth group, and I would run one of the small groups, and I would run some of the. We started these things called Man Night, and so me and this other leader, we would lead those, and the youth pastor would show up, and then just kind of leave, and we would kind of run the show and do all the teaching and everything. And I got to teach once in a while, and I would run devotions with the worship team and disciple them. And one of the guys on the worship team came to me, and he was like, dude, man, if you were the youth pastor, I would totally go to your church. And like, I don't think he meant like, hey, let's rebel. But if I had gone with that thought, if I had selfish ambition of like, heck yeah, man, I deserve my own youth group, that could have gone really ugly real fast. If I decided that I was going to turn against Pastor Scott and be like, you know what? I'm cool. I'm doing my own thing. We're going to start a new youth group. We're not going to tell him. We're going to start a new youth group of 3 on Sundays, and it will be awesome. And that would be dissension. Selfish ambition begins all these things. But here's how it grows from there. And look at all these words. See, selfish ambition ends up leading you down one of 2 paths, or maybe even both. Absalom ended up with both. But you start with selfish ambition, and then you start looking around, and you get jealous because somebody else has made it past you. Jealous. Then you're jealous, and then you start envying. And you're just like, man, I need that. And you start hating the guy who has the thing that you want. Hatred. And then before you know it, you're going into fits of rage, like, man, I don't have that flat screen. All I got is this thing. Ah! And breaking your TV, and then you're sitting around all mad at the dude across the street for having the 80-inch flat screen, and you got a broken TV and a broken foot from kicking the TV till it broke. And then on the other side of that, when you're in a group like this, in a community, when you have any sort of leverage or power amongst the community, that stuff gets exponentially more dangerous. Because now you're not just throwing a fit at home and being an idiot on your own and maybe, getting in a fight with the guy or whatever if your fit of rage happens while you're face to face with the subject of your envy and jealousy. But like I said, if I were to start that here and turn away and decide my ways are better than his ways and I don't want to follow him, end up with discord, talking amongst ourselves about how that's not so great, and eventually even building up into dissension where we're outright rebelling against what's in charge or the main focus of the group, and then causing factions where I'm like, all right, this team, you're with me, and we are going to fight against it. We're all leaving. That's how churches split. That's how wars are started. That's how countries split. That's how craziness begins to happen. That's how companies fall apart. And in stuff like this is how kings died. Or princes, if they're too stupid to, cut their hair and get caught in a tree. Now, on the other side of all this, the bad fruit, all of this stuff comes from filling yourself with badness, with selfishness, with being prideful and going, I don't need what God has for me. I'm going to do my own thing. On the other side of this is the fruit of the Spirit. And the ones that we're looking at that contrast with this are joy, peace, kindness, gentleness, and then patience or forbearance, depending on the translation, to kind of fit the same. Like putting up with something that's not so great. Having patience. If Absalom would have hung out and not been such a selfish idiot, he might have just been king. Well, he was hanging out. That was clever. Thanks. Well done, Jay. Well played. He was hanging about, he said, for those of you who were on the internet or listening to the podcast. Okay, so real fast. Yes, we have a podcast. Great. All right, real fast. Matthew 18. Ta-da! Matthew 18. There we go. This is how you're supposed to work it when you have issues with people. This is how Jesus told us to work it out. It goes like this. If your brother or sister sins, go out and point out their fault just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. Bailey, come here. Nick, come here. Okay, so Nick is a punk. He's doing some stuff he shouldn't do, and Bailey's just sick of it, man, sick. And so he goes to Nick, and he goes pointing out their fault. He's like, hey man, you blah 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 and stuff and junk, and I don't like it. And then if they listen to you, he's like, yes, okay, I hear you. I'm sorry. Let's hug it out like bros. Excellent. Now, you have won him over. High fives. Everyone's happy. If he doesn't listen, if they will not listen, take one or two others. Go get one or two others. Yeah, get three. There we go. Okay, so he gets one or two others, and they come along as witnesses. And so now he's like, look, guys, blah, 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 blah. This is what's wrong with it. And they're like, I know, right? So that every matter may be established by the testimony of two or three witnesses. And so now he's got witnesses, and they're all like, look at this guy. Orange is illegal. And he's like, I'm not taking off the sweater. So now he's like, that sweater, all right. Now he's like, I got witnesses. He's still not listening. No. Okay, so if they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. So now Bailey's like, I'm going to go tell Pastor Scott. And so he takes his witnesses and he goes to Pastor Scott. And they go, and they're talking to Pastor Scott, and he's like, look, I got witnesses, and we got stuff going on, and he will not take off the stupid orange sweater. It's a very beautiful sweater. I love it. They're full of selfish ambition and jealousy and envy. All right. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them like they're from the IRS. Yeah, that's right. That means you get out. Hey. Thank you, beautiful acting team. Or like a pagan, you know, whatever, they're sacrificing goats and children, and you're like, you know. So, pagan, pagan, sacrifice children. All right, bring it back. Don't worry, we don't really hit next time, but it's very nice. So, not every situation where you're going to have a conflict is a direct result of somebody who is in outright blatant sin, and you're not. But the same concept applies. If Absalom, for instance, had an issue with his dad's leadership, talking to every dude who walks into town, telling them, oh, he sucks, you're right, oh, I was in charge, and then send him back to go tell the whole town, man, Absalom should be in charge, he's really on it. That's being a punk. Instead, Absalom should go to his dad and be like, Pops, you know, some people that aren't so happy, I think I can help you build up the kingdom a little better. And put himself in a place where he would be able to learn from his dad and get into position and be the kind of guy who's deserving of being king one day instead of being killed like a porcupine while he's hanging from his beautiful hair from the branch of the tree. Because that's stupid. A dumb way to die. Just saying. Exactly. You guys, this directly applies to you here. This directly applies to you here. It has happened more than once where a leader has come to me or Scott and said, people in my small group or other students have said, well, everybody's saying blah, 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 blah. And we're like, I don't care. You know why? We have a policy at this church. Anonymous complaints will be thrown away. True. Anonymous complaints will be thrown away. If you will not follow Matthew 18 and come and tell us to our face, I don't care what you think. If you tell your small group leader to go and tell us something, we will tell them, go back and tell them to say that. Until then, I'm going to pretend I never heard it. And you can ask your small group leaders. We have told them that in the past. So some of you who maybe like had a comment and never told us and have told your leader multiple times, there's a reason why it hasn't been fixed. Because you didn't tell us. And I got Jesus telling me how to go about this, and I got your way you want to do it. And your way feels more like Absalom. So forget it. You guys, fess up, talk with people face to face. Don't follow the sins of the flesh. You're going to go into your small groups and you're going to look at not only take a look at Absalom and think it's in 2 Samuel 15. You guys want to look through that in your small groups, but look at how could this have gone differently? Maybe talk it out. Like what else could have happened if Absalom wasn't such a moron? And even more in your own life, what are some areas that you guys have had really bad conflict resolution because you haven't told somebody? Because all of this stuff, dissensions and factions, you know what that looks like in school? Gossip. You start splitting people against each other, and all of a sudden, like, you end up with stuff where I remember in 6th grade being slapped in the face because somebody said something to somebody else about something, and like about my girlfriend, you know, 6th graders, babies, we don't know, but said something, and she, not even my girlfriend, we were cool. I saw my girlfriend, I was like, hey, high five, let's go to class, because that was like 6th grade kissing back then. Now it's like groping. I don't even know. But back in the good old days of innocence, when I was a child, it wasn't that long ago, but dang, man. So, no, like, we didn't, I don't think I ever actually kissed this girl. So, like, I was like, okay, like, hug, oh, that was nice. And I'm on my way to class, and all of a sudden another girl comes up, and she's like, I can't believe you. Because gossip had gotten around. You know what I mean? Factions, dissension, envy, jealousy, rage. It's rage. No. Okay, so you guys are going to go and talk about these things in your small groups and work out how do you respond in joy, peace, kindness, gentleness, patience, instead of with fits of rage and jealousy and envy and all that nonsense. Cool? Let's pray. We'll go. Lord, thank you for giving us not only not only a word on like, hey, here's how you do it, guys, but you came here and lived it out for us so we could also witness it, see you do it perfectly. And then you died on our behalf, and we got up from that to save us from our own sin. Help us to not create more sin to spit on your grace, but that we would be able to walk out these things in a way that's honoring to you, and that even more than just when things are cool, that when we have problems and issues, that our love for each other and our willingness to work things out by the fruit of the Spirit would become a testament to your power in this world to change lives. We can live out the gospel of our own. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's go ahead and comment.
Yay! Incoming freshman girls, you are going with Miss Danielle Pratt. Incoming freshman boys, you want to go with Tim overnight. If there's anybody that's more than your best, so your friend brought you.
Is this on live right now?
You know what I got? I got an Axiom for me.
Nope, it's a range.
Yeah, you're good, man. You're good. The Lily seniors in the
Every other.
My cat stops eating.
Thank you.
Debbie, I just want you to know I love you.
I think that's
Debbie,
so
Jordan, I love you. I love you very platonically, of course. I love you.
Next time, I gotta do this.
Sure, man.
I want you over here.
Well,
Sure.
we can work on it. Let's work on it later.
Right.
I love you. I'll let you sit by me. You sit right here.
Listen up, you guys. Now it works. You guys, give me time to think. What's it, let's go do, it's coming back. Encouraging you guys. Just part of your life. Work on this. I don't know what you guys talk about, right? Take time. Take time. Yes. I was listening for the last half hour. I mentioned that's too much. You're going to right, yeah. That's what? Graduating what? College? It wasn't me.
This gets hard. So hard to get.
I wanted that to be
You're right to be like 47 speeches.
Yeah.
Vice President, Secretary, Vice Treasurer.
So Dave, you were saying something.
Okay.
Just kidding.
If you don't quit, you must quit.
They're dead.
Back to Dan.
Hey, you guys.
So we did have a meeting.
No.
I wasn't playing. I wasn't looking.
I don't want to split this, guys.
We don't have to be no. We talked about it. No, before we talked about that, we talked about that's
That's so
yeah, it's on the stage. You saw it, right? It was like, yeah, I think that they hit.
They like it's an herbal tea that actually He's not here. Or yes, with the names of teachers. That'd be more perfect to you. We're old.
You should find something. So we know what happens. Everyone does it from bachelors to teenagers. There's gossip that goes around. I mean, that's why Jesus taught it, right? That's why he put it in the Bible. Because it had, don't worry, that's thousands of years. Yeah, it still happens. So, how do we we can't fix other people, but what we can change. So what is that? God tell us to remove those comments. My buddy, yeah, that's the only door up the truck. Trying to tell where it's like old man.
How many people
Like, whoa.
Come on, Grandpa. I mean, it's a biblical answer. Both. How many of you guys have done that?
Seriously. That works. You're going to lose the boat.
Yeah, I mean, is this how we should handle every conflict with somebody and everyone? You like I mentioned, So I mean, this is not how we handle every conflict. I mean, this is some of it's just a little different. Yeah. Get to church, especially like, who are all these people? They don't, what do you live there? So you can't. Their house. No, there's a time and a place for it. But Scott made a point. Why doesn't it work? You don't see what you're try to. What? You mind?
Yeah. So if you have a lot of it has to do with it's tough. We've sit down. I'll make a comment or two. Briefly, let's say take soft approach, click, and you come back. And we think this might be something we should get a copy of you. And then you move to the second conversation. We've had to have people who, especially like you sit down with industry, we're going to release you because what your lifestyle is going for, or your disobedience, your lack of real disobedience, but you know, some cases we actually have to go down and say, you know, we just do that, you know, and with a positive subtraction. And it's hard to do because there was a mission that I'm going to say some of these things do sometimes be distracted in teaching times. Always wanting to do attention jobs. Never wanting to do any of that kind of stuff. You guys all love enough to understand that there's you got to do this one, you got to do this one too. There's a little thing to take with this stuff. But this guy was just all about, I'm not in charge. I'm going to, you know, you ask them why. Yeah, just, you know, we were like, we got sort of all of this. After several times with meetings, you know, for the longest time it was like, you want to blame somebody else and make them the problem. But we can't, in the second or third person, you start to see the pattern. And then we really recognize the pattern. That's really hard to work with something. So
An example that I can see is, you know, let's say, you know, Dave, Brian, they're all going to different places for school, and you know, let's say on Facebook, I don't know, we've done all that. Next year, Dave starts posting and stuff, inappropriate stuff. Right, exactly. You know, make the right person out of the city. Yeah, make the right guy. The guy going to San Diego. We're not, you know, what you're saying. He's, you know, he starts partying or whatever. Brandon notices.
Got a new blog.
Day late. Guys, Brandon notices. Brandon notices. I mean, this is a real, I mean, this is more something that you guys might think, you know somebody from your group, and you grew up with in church, well, in that, they go off to college, they're away from the church, they're away from family, they're away from their, all their accountability, everything else, and they start, hanging out with different people, and so that's where I can see good brand new. You go to one-on-one instead of like instead of going to one of us first, you go to him first.
Okay, you don't comment back. That's you don't comment back. That's
yeah, don't comment back, right? But you know, I'm giving a call. Don't do it on Facebook. So you know, give him a call and talk to him, and then if he keeps doing it, you know, there's it's kind of like intervention sort of. He's doing stuff, and I try talking to him, he's not really here. You know, and so you know, you guys go down there, you guys go down to San Diego. My apples won't grow over
hey, if you guys are going to see Diego, we're getting slated 50-50. We're getting. All right, we didn't want to do that. Yeah, that way we can stack. Go ahead, keep going.
So you guys see how that gets? You guys can do something like that. Nobody else? How about giving a situation where maybe you should sit or stuff? Yeah, not even good. Like
That's like I'm trying to got a chair. I was kidding, you know.
What? Go ahead.
Talk about
Playing chess at the beach.
that sounds like a story. Wait, chess or chess?
Some say chess at the beach.
That's
No, it's good. It's cool.
It's
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, it goes back to like the I don't think Granny smokes the whole with like the old factory. They were all nails on it. I've never seen them over. Like, I have two dog masters. That would be a terrible guy.
And then
Yeah, but I'm just going to bring my little
Basically, 15 people are going to be like,
yeah. So, and I was driving the machine. And it worked the first time. We had to like sit them down and do it. It's not just like what you guys are doing. But as far as it goes,
come on. Their arms were not tired. That's all I'm saying. It's more like, yeah.
So you got that. The two guys you talk one I don't know who talked to Jai, but I talked to him for shame. He was on the trip for a little bit with me. But we're just like, you know, just make sure that we back there. I'm scared. Right home, you're right up there. We have to take you, but we appreciate you. The mom does. Oh yeah. Yeah, and then when she found out why she was late, she got changed. She had to work all of that out.
You ever get a phone?
Huh? She apologized shortly after. She's like, I would have dressed up with somebody else.
And then when they come back.
But I had that idea.
We did that exchange one.
No, I
Shane was on the boat. He went on a boat. And we took all this stuff, ran hid behind a bush. We were like, Shane, what are you doing here? And they're like, he's like, what? Ryan left. He's like, The fear in his eyes, he was like,
I did that to Ryan. Said and like, was like,
oh yeah, they
yeah.
Yes. And then I had to call my mom, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, crap, I called his mom. I sprinted out there. Don't call your mom. I already dialed.
Just want to say I love you, Mom.
Yeah.
She
She
texted
me, and I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to call you and tell you I love you. And she's like, oh okay. She's like, oh.
My mom knows that's my mom knows that's true for I'm not. So she's like, okay. Everybody does that. Nah.
Cat. No, it's still a weird boiled cat. Brian was talking.
Hey, okay. Meow. Alright,
Chew your food.
I'm so sorry, guys. So tired.
It was delirious.
Alright. Oh, that's a good band. It's a good band.
Right.
No, everybody's being along. Everybody's being along. Good friends are good. I'm sorry.
We got 2 minutes.
Okay, let me ask you from the leader side. Yeah, if we try to do biblical discipline, Matthew 18 style, with you guys, do you feel like you're
I don't know. I think it depends on how much what I do, and how much I understand. But I don't want to do that. While there's some leaders who, for me, a person that is I've not so I've heard a lot of stories out of a lot of that's I've done a lot of things.
okay, for instance, and I'm going to cover the truth of the story. But let's say there's a student in here who's not listening. And the person, I'll follow the rules. Good basic rules like you guys meet together in chapel. What you guys have got rules. When you are not having fun, because you're already having fun. This sucks.
Why are you having fun, Ryan?
Okay. So anyways, but eating together, at shop together, being at the cabin times, the small group times. The rest of it is like great. Or even check in with this. Some of them we're not even like check in with us. If you've made friends, just tell us, hey, I'm at the table for you over. So those have been the rules of the So we say parental lives, we're covering your butts, we know where you are. You're not off the field with your girl, boy, or boy, girl, this person. So your leader comes to me, small group leader, and says, hey, this is what it is. I already talked to this person a couple times. He's a real one. And they're not responding real well. And then it happens a second or third time, and they come to me and say, hey, talk to them a couple times. Now I'll bring you in. I come into the situation. I begin adding, the weight of the youth pastor and stuff. And nothing changes. Logically, to me, my next step, because if you're not going to obey my authority, you're not going to obey obviously the camp's authority, you're not going to obey Catalina's authority. I need to call your parents, because you're really at the point you're not following things that are rules set for your protection, rules set for us to understand what you're doing. Now, I've done that, and it gets to that point. And I hate making that phone call. I hate making that phone call. And I've had parents who, totally one case, one parent, totally love it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Deal with this. So sorry. The other parent is like, I'm child what?
Well, if you don't get down here, your
okay,
child's
so,
gonna be found at the bottom of the lake.
so wait. In case people didn't get Jesus on the cross, but just put your kid on the cross too, because
a lot of you.
they're perfect house. But biblical discipline, that's the way I kind of see that.
Harder up front.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh
no, I'm talking like, we do the spiel for every trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty simple spiels, You're gonna put 7 rules in this. What about the rule every time?
There's 3 rules.
Yeah. Yeah, actually 2 or 3 of the rules are exactly the same. It's just worded differently. Listen to them.
No, I definitely.
Should I, this is just a thought, should I add in a student peer pressure base then?
Base?
Should I say to the leader that comes to me and says, so-and-so is not responding? Do I say, take 2 of so-and-so's friends and go with these? Because my brain, I always had like the 2 layers, like the coordinator, the pastor. Yeah, and I mean, it's still, it's a parent, it's like, it's well, sometimes,
That's seriously a lot.
so lame as my phone. Actually, I go, oh, it's not my phone, it's like they give you this. It says in the main issue, it's here for us if we need it.
Yeah, I think they call it one with the paper and then it's like.
Well, you leave
It's like, 15 cents for like 5 minutes. 25 cents. Wait, what? No. Okay.
Well,
Okay, come on.
I'm an in-guy, it's gonna click, but I'm not there.
When I was working at that would be more of our, and they weren't listening to the staff. We actually called range. Teams at the higher level. Program for a long time. Called 3 branches.
I think I was getting ready to
And it's short. Yeah. But it's not. So that was kind of the last. It's not the quarter.
See, look, I can grow the whole part. So I think that's it too. I make it like so.
You guys do it great.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise they'll feel like,
Oh.
Go.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I just want to work that after like. Wait a second.
And obviously,
That's not my side. You just like that. And just like I was like, I have a high system. It's like dirt. And it's all. Oh
Oh, well, yeah. I kicked you kayak the second time. Good. I got my foot stuck in the wall. Hi, Dina. I know, now Alright, do a quick one. I always go first. You got it there.
I guess I could. That's so cute. Should I stop the broadcast?
Alright.